We are going to do a quick reminder here on graphing equations of lines and then using that to be able to solve systems by graphing. So remember when we are graphing, we will often have things, so we're just sort of starting at the basic level. There's other graphing we can do, but we'll often have things in the form y equals mx plus b. Now, I'm using graph paper today to help us sort of get a better graph. That doesn't mean that you're required to use graphing paper. You're just able to make a quicker graph that's a little bit neater and a little bit more precise for solving by graphing. Okay, so if we want to graph something like y equals 2x plus 4, we're going to need a coordinate plane, right, which means we need an x and y axis, right? I'm still using graphing paper and my lines still aren't perfect, which is okay. Right, we should know that this is our x-axis, this is our y-axis. We should know that the middle here is the origin where the x and y axis intersect each other. Okay, and if we want to graph y equals 2x plus 4, we need to know two things. We need to know the slope. Remember, slope is always represented by the letter m. Okay, so in this case, slope is always in front of the x, right? This is in the form y equals mx plus b. The slope, the m, is always the number sitting in front of the x. It's the coefficient of the x. So in this case, m equals 2. And our b, or our y-intercept, equals 4. So if we want to graph this line, okay, we're going to start at a y-intercept of positive 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? It's the y-intercept, so I'm going on the y-axis. Now, I need to think about my slope as a fraction. So whether or not we see this as a fraction, we can always turn it into a fraction by writing it over 1. The top number tells me how many I'm going to rise, how many I'm going to go up, and the bottom number tells me how many I'm going to go over. Okay, so if our top number is negative, then that's actually going to be down. If our bottom number is negative, that's actually going to be left. So if I want to plot a slope of 2 over 1 from the point I made, I'm going to go up 2 over 1, right 1, because it's a positive. Okay, and that's, you can count that as many times as you want. That's going to give you your equation of the line. Okay, so let's look at another one. Let's say, how about y equals negative 2 over 3x minus 1? Okay, so if we want to graph this, again, we're going to need a coordinate plane. Oh, geez, my paper moved. That was terrible. So we have our x, we have our y. Okay, so in this case, our m is negative 2/3. Now, whenever we have a negative out here in front of the fraction, we can't give that negative to both of them. That negative only counts one time. Okay, so most of my students prefer to see that negative in the top. It's actually the best way to write a fraction. We don't really want a negative in the denominator. Our b is going to equal negative 1. So I'm going to start by making a point at negative 1 on the y-axis. And then I'm going to go down 2. So because this is negative, I'm going to go down 2, right 3. Now, another thing that we can do is we can also extend this line the other way. And when we're going to solve one here in a moment, a system by graphing, we want to make sure that we have very precise points. So we don't just sort of want to draw on a line and hope for the best. So to continue this line the other direction, right, instead of going down 2, right 3, I can go up 2, left 3, and I can continue making points for this line that continue it out both directions. Pretend that went through all the points. Okay, so now we can sort of put that together. And let's say we want to solve a system by graphing that says y equals 3x and y equals x, negative x plus 4. Okay, so again, we have a system here, and we want to solve by graphing. Ooh, geez. The lines are a little bit crazy today. So we're going to make our coordinate plane here. Right, we have our x-axis horizontal, our y-axis is our vertical. So when we want to solve a system means that we have two equations happening at the same time. Okay, but what we're going to do is just look at one of them at a time. So if we look at this top equation, y equals 3x, right, we know that our m is 3. Now, we don't see a b, but this really says plus 0, so our b is going to be 0. So we're going to start at 0, and then we're going to go up 3 over 1, right, because that's a fraction. So when we do this, we want to give ourselves enough points. My students often say to me, how many points should I make? Okay, there really isn't an exact answer. You want to make enough. So I always just sort of assure myself by sort of continuing this line in both directions so that I know what these precise points are. And this is where graph paper is a lot nicer than just sort of doodling out a graph. Okay, so now even if I don't draw my line perfectly here, I can still see those exact points on the line. Okay, now I'm going to look at my second one here. So this says m is -1. MIB is 4. So I'm going to start at 4. And I'm going to go down 1, right 1, because this is -1 over 1. Now once I find that intersection point, I know I have the solution. Your solution is always where the two lines intersect. Okay, and you're going to name that ordered pair. So this is the point 1, 3. Okay, this tells us that x equals 1 because x is always the first value in our ordered pair, and y equals 3. If you ever want to check and make sure that you're right without just looking at the graph, so if you're not as confident in graphing, you could plug in your x value equaling 1 and your y value equaling 3. Now you'd have to do that for both equations and make sure that they're both true. So you're going to try a problem on your own where you sort of have to do some checking of your own at the end. We'll go over that when you're done.